So poverty is, or how I defined it, that is working 40 hours, 80 hours a week and still not having enough to pay your rent, celebrate your child's birthday, pay your electricity bill. In 2025, a family of four with an income of $32,000 is considered poor. But families with incomes that are well above that poverty threshold still cannot afford their cost of living. And that is a problem. We also know that many families can't even afford an emergency, like losing a job. Poverty is literally the difference between government and society failing our future or sustaining it. We've designed systems that allow it to exist, and we could easily design systems to eliminate it. One place we see the most gaps is in the labor market. If you don't have a job, you're likely to live in poverty. Family economic security depends on the availability of good jobs, right? In the state of Michigan, according to federal data, 1 in 4 children live in a family where no parent has a regular full-time job. And often it's like part-time, temporary work, but with low wages, and that's not enough. You ask them that it's not enough. And we know that Black and brown workers, many of them, especially women, are overrepresented in low-wage work with limited resources like retirement benefits, and underrepresented in high-wage work and salary work and in work where they're having opportunities of promotion. And this is not by accident. We know this is not by accident. It is a result of historical exclusion, network bias, and the gatekeeping in hiring and other employment practices. That's not fair, right? It's not fair that because of how you look or who you are, what you were born to be, you are now automatically pivoted and pipelined into certain job sectors. And that's what you see when you are experiencing occupational segregation, or where you see only women going into care work or education, and then you're only seeing men going into business or hard sciences, or when you see African Americans and Latinos having certain wages and certain jobs in the labor market. And if you're in that cycle, it can be a never-ending cycle if we don't correct some of those historical policies that made it so. There's so many different policies that we could focus on. Policy that is for the people and informed by the people would be the most transformational. One way we can address poverty is through a federal job guarantee. It's not novel. Federal jobs guarantee has been around for a long time, and it's this idea that if you want to work, you should have the right to work. And a federal jobs guarantee can ensure that there is economic security for all people, for all Americans. But it must be done within an ecosystem and in a framework that is an inclusive economy, where we don't treat people as replaceable objects in the labor market. And we work together, and we do so to achieve that vision. So with a jobs for all policy, the government would create jobs, right? With a living wage, which would act as an economic stabilizer, making it difficult for employers to cheat people out of livable wages and to lay them off and replace them, and allow people to pay for their basic needs with dignity and with respect, while still having work that is meaningful and contributes to a society, from care work to sustainable work to building housing to arts to evaluation. It can do so much good, not just for the workers who are looking for work, but for the entire society, our entire community. We also need to ask really hard questions, right? And we need to ask them often. Like, are our policies producing the results we want to see, or are they reinforcing the same inequalities that we're fighting against? We also need to shift from talking about just safety nets alone and start talking about rights. What about an economic right, like the right to work, the right to housing, the right to healthcare, the right to not live in poverty? we need to start to shift our conversation and our worldviews around that. It's funny, I have this quote that I carry with me always, which is, show me your budget and I'll tell you what your values are. And so how we invest also matters. And when people ask, well, why does it matter? You tell them because poverty is systemic, it is structural, it is purposeful compounding of policies that were never meant to work for someone's good. And often the odds were just stacked up against them since the day that they were born. And that is why we should care, and that is why it matters. For me, the work to alleviate poverty is about shifting those odds permanently. So, thriving isn't just an exception to the rule, but an expectation for our society.